1. Anshul felt his arms quake as the power of his spellcraft began to wane, and the heat that had burned deep within him gave way to icy chill as he regarded his friends. He began, the words failing to form in his mouth. Kodawar and Big C shook themselves in an effort to dry off. When that failed, Hun Hao twirled his staff to blow away the excess moisture. Javari and Michael took a seat on boulders that lined the stream, giving the wizard and sorcerer a modicum of privacy. Strigg slowly approached Anshul, the amber gem atop his staff glowing with a faint white light. "Where's your wand, Anshul?" Strigg's words were clipped, and despite the chill of the magic on his staff mixed with the cool autumn breeze, Anshul felt heat in the words regardless. Moments before, Anshul and his companions had narrowly escaped death at the hands of a mad mage known as the Cinder Prophet. What began as a simple escort mission had quickly devolved into a trek through goblin strongholds, cursed ruins, and a harrowing journey through the heart of a Cinder Prophet's lair. Undead beasts and haunted idols had chased the party from the depths of the wizard's lair, and the adventure culminated in a battle between the party and the Cinder Prophet himself, astride a black dragon. Anshul, already struggling with maintaining control of his pyromancy, had called upon all his might to hurl a miniature star at the beast, decapitating the dragon and very nearly destroying his friends in the process. Now, in the calm after the storm, his reckoning had come. Anshul removed the broken wand from what remained of his scorched robes. "It broke while I was casting the earth magic earlier. I know I should have told you, but when Zarias came to me in the dream..." Strigg held up a hand and Anshul fell silent. "No excuses. You were given a tool to aid your control, and despite the loss of that tool, you used your power recklessly. Stars above, Anshul, look at yourself." Anshul peered down and examined his tattered, burnt robes. His chest was bare, and his already red-tinted skin had burnt a deeper hue. Burn scars etched across his chest, a reminder of the intense heat he conjured in the battle. He looked to the dragon, its head obliterated and its neck a smoldering ruin of flesh. "Big C and Kodawar are lucky to be alive," Strigg continued. "Have you any idea how reckless that spell was?" The wizard pointed at the scorched earth around the dragon's corpse. The ground beneath had grown so hot amidst the blast that loose soil had turned to glass. The Cinder Prophet's corpse was little more than a pile of ash amid scraps of cloth that had once been robes. Anshul looked then to his companions and took in the carnage. Big C, the hulking, simple-minded barbarian, bore scars along his exposed chest and forearms where heat had rippled from the fire blast and licked away at his flesh. The coarse hair along the half-orc's chest had burned away, and the periapt he wore at his throat had blackened and warped. Likewise, Kodawar, the half-orc brawler, had his leather armor warped and peeled away from the heat wave. His greasy black hair was now layered in ash, giving the younger of the brutes a visage of great age. Anshul knelt on his knees and stared at the ground. "I'm sorry. All of you. I'm so sorry." The wizard glared at his friend, his eyes burning with rage. Strigg took several deep breaths, then began to get a handle on his emotions. After a while, he knelt on one knee in front of a sorcerer. He spoke calmly, quietly. "Look at me." Anshul did as instructed, though his eyes glistened as tears pooled in the corners of his eyes. "I know that you need help, but you must understand something. I cannot help you if you do not let me know how to help." "I know, but there was nothing to be done, Strigg. Could you have mended the wand even if I had told you about it?" Strigg felt a tinge of pain in his chest as he reflected on his own state during the struggle against the Ancient One's idol back in the Prophet's lair. No, I do not believe that I could. It's time we both allow ourselves to confront the truth. One day, this power will consume me." Anshul rose to his feet, but the shame of his actions would not allow him to meet the wizard's eyes. "No wand or spell can change that, and I am beginning to make peace with that." Strigg's voice began to crack, the anger of the moment giving way to fear at last. "I will not, accept that. I don't know what this staff will allow me to do, but I swear to you, I will do everything I can to help you overcome this burden. You know how this ends, Strigg. You know what that Nightmare Queen told me. Only through immersion will you find peace. If that's the way things have to be, I will accept it. I refuse to let this hellish power destroy my friends." Strigg was silent for a while longer. "I will not say that I understand, or even that I agree. But you are my friend, my brother, and I will be there for you when your time draws near." He met Anshul's gaze, and sadness gave way to steely resolve. "But do not ask me to stand by helplessly in that moment. You may feel bound by fate to accept what comes, but I am under no such compulsion. I will seek a way to help you fight against this force. If the time comes that you lose all control and I do not have the strength to release you from this burden, I will stand with you, but I will also use my power to fight that which seeks to consume you." "I understand. And when that time comes, I expect you to do what you must to protect the others, even if it means protecting them from me." Strigg nodded gravely. "We will cross that bridge once we come upon it. Until then, I would ask a favor of you. Name it. Do not call upon your fire again. The more you lean on its power, the more it wields you instead." Strigg glanced back at the ruined dragon corpse, at the smoldering battlefield and the wounded companions still licking their wounds. "For your sake, I ask this, and for theirs." "I will do whatever I can," Anshul agreed. "But I can't promise it won't happen despite my efforts." Strigg accepted that in silence. As the sorcerer knelt by the stream to wash away the ash and soot of the battle, Strigg made a circuit of the clearing, checking on each of their companions in turn. Big C leaned against a rock, digging through his satchel for a balm to aid in soothing the burns. A young goblin, Gooball, hid behind the barbarian, only now deciding that the danger was gone at last. The barbarian removed a multicolored cap from his head, adorned with a small wooden propeller, and passed the garment to the little goblin. "Here, this is my favorite hat. I'd like you to hold on to it for me while I clean up." Big C smiled wearily at his new friend, and Gooball looked down at the hat in confusion a moment before donning the hat himself. Big C continued rummaging through his pack, failing to find the balm he had hoped for. "Does it hurt much?" Strigg asked, gathering motes of amber light around the gemstone on his new staff, as he paused in front of the burnt warrior. Big C tried to keep a stoic face, but the winces betrayed him as he moved. "I've had worse. Fought enough hell beasts to know how to fix myself up, but I think I forgot my salve." Strigg allowed the motes to settle like fireflies on Big C's chest and arms. Within seconds, the bubbling flesh and blisters began to recede, knitting healthy, green flesh together once more. Big C exhaled, releasing the tension and pain he'd tried so stoically to carry. "That's much better. Thank you." Michelangelo Huntington, a half-elf ranger, dropped from a tree limb and nodded to the wizard. Michael, as he called himself, was new to the party, and Strigg knew very little of him. The ranger showed little sign of harm in the attack, and Strigg was glad to see that at least one member of the group had come away unscathed. Strigg turned to Kodawar, who had knelt by the stream and began washing the ash from his hair. "Are you well?" the wizard asked. Not too bad. Armor's slagged in a few places, but it'll hold. I'll be fine. Just need to clean the dirt from the wounds, and I'll be ready to leave." Strigg looked the younger brawler over, and, satisfied that the half-orc was not downplaying his wounds, made his way to Javari. A dwarven warlock, Javari had been on the road with his brother, Argo Ironshovel, to deliver a wagon of arms and armor to the city of Summerhost. Strigg and his companions had been hired to escort the dwarves, but arrived too late. Argo had been kidnapped by goblins, and it was the rescue mission to save Argo that had led to the confrontation with the Cinder Prophet. Javari was crude, gruff, and had no qualms in using his mysterious patron's gift to inflict pain on his enemies. But beneath the crass demeanor and unprocessed grief and rage, Strigg could sense compassion and love in the warlock, even if only a little. Javari was leaning against a smoldering tree stump, running a stone along the blade of his axe. Strigg immediately felt an air of rage and fear swirling around the dwarf. "Would you care to share your thoughts?" the wizard asked, a hint of trepidation in his tone. Javari spat, refusing to look the wizard in the eye. "My thoughts? I don't think you or anyone else are ready to hear my thoughts." Strigg winced, bracing for the impact of the warlock's ire. And well he should. Javari had carried his brother's loss with stoicism and crass humor, trying to hide his own anxiety beneath those masks. But with the Cinder Prophet now dead, the sole living lead on Argo's whereabouts was now silenced permanently. Anshul, noticing the dwarf's agitation at last, walked over to address the situation. "Javari, I just want to say, I could give a steaming shit what you have to say, the warlock snarled. We should have left him alive. You should have restrained yourself. There's plenty more he could have told us. Javari kicked at the mound of ash that was once the Cinder Prophet and scattered some of it in the breeze. In a perfect world, we could have done that, Strigg interceded, positioning himself between Anshul and Javari. The sorcerer did not fail to notice the amber gem atop the wizard's staff glowing faintly. But we are not in that world, I'm afraid. The dwarf frowned at the ash, clearly displeased with the response. I do not believe we would have learned anything useful about your brother. Not from him, at least. I suppose we'll never know. Javari's voice dripped with venom, and a cloud of negative emotion that surrounded him made small flecks of ice appear along the scorched earth beneath them. Did you not just tell the others in the heat of battle to let me have this? Anshul retorted, the heat in his voice rising. You can't have it both ways, you know. I didn't expect you would kill him without letting us interrogate him. It's one thing to make him regret his wickedness, but it's another thing entirely to reduce him to cinders before we can get some use out of him. Javari, please. Strigg reached out to lay an arm on his friend's shoulder, but Javari slapped his hand and released the energy around him. A small burst of icy force washed over Strigg, who raised his staff to dampen the spell's power. Snowflakes melted as they bounced off the ward, but a shard of ice whizzed past the arcane defense and slashed across Anshul's cheek. Blood dripped from the shallow wound, and Big C and Kodawar leapt to their feet with weapons drawn. Anshul held up his hand at the half-orcs. It's fine. Let him have his tantrum. Strigg held his staff in a defensive stance, but allowed the ward to fall. Javari did not speak again, but shoved past the wizard and sorcerer to sulk in the woods. Strigg glanced at Anshul's wound and sent a wisp of amber light over the scratch, knitting the torn flesh. Thanks, Anshul mumbled. I think I'm going to go clear my head a bit, maybe see if I can find Fenris. Javari stomped through the dense brush of the woods, hacking at fallen limbs and thick weeds with his axe. They had the wizard right there, could have overpowered him and chained him up. Argo was still out there somewhere, afraid and alone, and that damned Cinder Prophet could have given them all a lead on how to find the dwarf. Weeks of travel, danger at every turn, and still they were no closer to saving Argo. Javari came to a small glen and stopped marching, only then realizing that he had been breathing raggedly. His knuckles were white as he gripped the axe, and sweat poured down his brow as he gasped for air. Despite the exertion, his blood was cold in his veins and his heart pounded against his chest. A panic attack. He knew the sensation all too well. You could kill the sorcerer, a voice echoed in his head. His dark patron, an eldritch entity known only as the Beyonder, often whispered dark thoughts into Javari's mind when the panic attacks came. Whether one led to the other, Javari couldn't be sure, but years of dealing with the sensations had at least given him a small amount of fortitude. He killed the wizard, and your brother is still lost. Why not take your frustration out on him? Does he not deserve it? Tempting though the idea was, Javari steadied himself against a tree and focused on steadying his breath. One long breath in, hold for 10 seconds, one long breath out. Repeat. As his heart rate slowed and his breathing returned to normal, his patron's voice stopped clawing at his mind as his temper began to calm. Cool it, Javari, he scolded himself. You're no use to Argo like this. Anshul has his own demons, just like you. Get a grip, have some compassion. He remained in the glen a few minutes longer, and when the panic attack was past, only then did he begin to trek back to the party. In the opposite direction, Anshul stumbled through the thicket, his mind ablaze with fear and self-loathing. He'd lost control, and it was a miracle alone that his friends hadn't been blasted away in the heat of his attack on the dragon. Worse, the guilt he felt over burning Javari's home as a child, compounded with the shame of killing the Cinder Prophet without interrogation. Javari's anger and fear were justified, and Anshul struggled with the weight of his guilt and shame. Peace through immersion. The refrain echoed in his mind as he replayed the images of the burning dragon, the wave of fire harming his friends, the memory of a burning city and a small child left alone in the ash. The noise thundered in his head, and his chest began to glow white-hot. Sweat became puffs of steam as his body evaporated the moisture. It was going to happen again, and he knew in his heart he was not strong enough to stop it. A yipping noise pulled Anshul from his self-induced penance. The heat receded, the noise in his mind quieted, and a lone wolf emerged from the tall grass. The beast carried a large bone in his mouth, the remains of a pterosaur that the Cinder Prophet had reanimated to assault the party earlier in the day. Through much pain and effort, Anshul and his friends had slain the undead beast, and now Fenris began to gnaw at the massive rib to get to the marrow within. "Fenris!" Anshul felt his anxiety ease as the wolf dropped the bone and licked at his master's face. "I see you made yourself scarce in the firestorm. Good thing, too. At least now I know there's one soul out there that's happy to see me." The wolf yipped, returned to his bone, and began to gnaw hungrily. Anshul watched his pet wolf with pride, and thought of how he had rescued the beast from a band of goblins. Fenris and his vulpine brothers had been chained and kept in the pit of a cave, with only scraps dropped down to feed them. The wolf had nearly killed Anshul as he literally fell into the pit, but the sorcerer chose mercy and released the beast to find freedom in the wild. Fenris, moved by the gesture, had chosen to stay with the party. Now he joined in the misadventures, and Anshul was glad to have him at his side. "Perhaps," Anshul thought after a while, "Fenris sees more than I do. If a feral wolf can see my heart and choose to follow me, perhaps there's more than fire and shame to define me." The wolf lapped at the last of the marrow and paced over to his master, licking his face once again. He sniffed the air, looked to the direction Anshul had left the party, and scratched expectantly at the dirt. All right, you've made your point. Come on. Time to rejoin the others." Strigg watched as Javari tromped one direction and Anshul in the other. He startled as footsteps approached from behind. "Oh, what's up with them?" Hunhau, a pale-skinned devilkin monk, jogged over to join Strigg, his youthful optimism somehow unperturbed by the thrashing he'd received from the dragon. Strigg noted that someone had tossed the boy a healing potion recently. He could smell the mixture of herbs and tonics on the monk's breath, thanks in no small part to the fact that the monk stood much too close than necessary. "Javari is afraid," Strigg answered with a sigh. "He has every right to be. Give him some space for a bit, and he'll come around." "I'm afraid too. Oh hells, I just gave a crazy wizard a concussion, and then I got slapped by a dragon tail, and I was chained up in a dark cell a few hours ago. This has been a terrifying couple of weeks for me." "Is there perhaps a point you are looking to make?" "Oh, my point is that everyone has to deal with fear at some point. You just have to remember that fear needs you way more than you need it." Strigg pondered that for a moment. Hunhau hadn't been with the group long, and his personality seemed far too cheerful for most of everyone's tastes. Strigg was no exception, but even he had to admit that the monk had a point. "Learned that in your monastery, did you?" Hunhau shrugged. "That was a key tenet for our order, but I really figured it out way before then. My dad always told me that fear needs permission to work on you. Like any other predator, it can be starved. No matter how scary things get, you can always do your part to take power away from fear." "So that's why you're so upbeat all the time?" "Pretty much. Truth be told, I'm probably the biggest coward you'll ever meet. But every day I wake up, I get to prove myself a little braver than I was the day before. I'll never stop being afraid, I know that. But at least I can make fear work for it." "I can respect that." He stuck out his hand for the monk to shake. "I do not believe we have properly met. I'm Strigg. I'm glad you are here with us." Hunhau beamed and shook Strigg's hand vigorously. "Hunhau, thanks again for saving me and Michael. Oh, and the goblin too, even if he creeps me out a little bit." Strigg arched an eyebrow. "Do you consider him creepy because he is a goblin, or is it something else?" "I mean, all goblins seem to be pretty bad apples in general, but I wouldn't really call him creepy. But this guy, I don't know. It's like there's something extra just below the surface." Hunhau shivered a little as his eyes wandered into the distance. "That is great information to have," Strigg mused. "I will keep an eye on him." "I think that would be wise." The rest of the group made their way over and joined the monk and wizard. Anshul returned just then with Fenris in tow, and Javari emerged from the woods across the clearing at the same time. The awkwardness of the recent event still hung in the air, and Anshul felt small under the scrutiny. "Hell of a blast you threw," Kodawar grunted, still fumbling with his armor. Yeah, listen, I wanted to apologize about that. I shouldn't have cut loose like that with you two so close to the blast radius.
Are you kidding?
Big C pulled Anshul into a bear hug that squeezed the air from the poor devilkin's lungs.
That was awesome. How'd you get the fires that hot?
The barbarian's reaction was a welcome turn of events for Anshul, and he felt his anxiety began to ease away in the warmth of Big C's forgiveness. Anshul coughed a few times, and Big C loosened his grip. It just sort of happened. I'll do better from now on. I don't want to hurt anyone in the process.
It's alright, kid. Shit happens. We'll be fine.
Kotowar stuck out a fist, and Anshul rapped knuckles with the brawler. That said, I'd consider it a personal favor if you quit melting my armor. I think I can maybe arrange that.
Good.
Kotowar looked to the sky and noted the moon rising behind the trees.
Come on, might as well get moving. We've got a dwarf to find.